Thank you. Come on, with order, please. Deputy Jerry Adams has the floor.
Last Concordia, Cheistigh I, we Rockdearcata Gelta, Mother Lechen Act Slancha, Garmidas Shark, the Health Bill 207, which in February the Minister for Health promised, or at least said he planned to introduce new legislation to give more power to HIQA and to do this by amending the Health Act 2007. Now, I think HIQA's latest report underlines the urgency of the new legislation promised by the Minister. This report into the unnecessary deaths of babies at Portseach Hospital, which the HSE made strenuous efforts to suppress, makes grim and depressing reading, last Concordia. And this is another damning HIQA report into our health service, which reveals repeated failures and non-compliance in the national healthcare standards by both the hospital and HSE. So, Taoiseach, I think this is a failure of government. I think that clearly the big responsibility may rest with the HSE, but the failure is not to take account of HIQA recommendations through a whole series of reports and indeed a series of other questions I raised here with you and the Health Minister on a letter I received from HIQA, and that's why the Minister quite rightly said that he planned to give more power to HIQA and to do this by amending the Health Act. So when will the government publish the legislation to meet the Minister's commitment to extend the remit of HIQA, and when will it put in place a legislative mechanism to ensure? This is the big problem. The big problem is that the HIQA recommendations and a whole series of other reports are not being implemented. So when will the government put in place a legislative mechanism to ensure this? My other question, Concordia, is about the government's obligations under the Good Friday Agreement and its commitments under the programme for government to the full implementation of the Good Friday Agreement. And I raise this because the British government has announced its decision to repeal the Human Rights Act and to remove the European Convention on Human Rights provisions from any involvement in British law. And that would be a grievous breach in the Good Friday Agreement, because under the terms of this agreement, which is an international treaty between Ireland and Britain, lodged with the UN, and this incorporates the Good Friday Agreement into law, the British government is committed to completing the incorporation into law in the north of the European Convention of Human Rights, and it also commits the British government to safeguards to ensure that the Assembly and public authorities in the north cannot infringe on the European Convention on Human Rights. Other safeguards apply to policing. So I'm asking the Taoiseach, does he accept, does he know of this, does he accept, did he raise this with Mr Cameron, that this proposal is a clear and significant breach of the Good Friday Agreement and the international treaty that underpins it? Will he immediately, if he hasn't done this, raise this with the British government, and will he urgently initiate discussions with all of the parties to the agreement on this?
Yeah, in respect to the second issue, we had a memo both from the Department of Taoiseach and the Department of Foreign Affairs this morning at Cabinet in respect of the issues that need to be considered by this country arising from the fact that you will have a referendum probably before 2017 to be determined by the people of Britain, and that obviously takes into account all of the issues here in respect of devolution to Scotland, Wales, and the situation for English MPs, and as a consequence for Northern Ireland. So I note the comment that you made, Deputy. When I spoke to Prime Minister Cameron on Saturday morning, obviously we both agree that we should have a meeting before the next European Council meeting of the 26th of June, and that will be the start of a number of meetings and discussions I would expect. But the issue that you raise in the context of the Good Friday Agreement is something that's of concern to us here as co-guarantors of this, and we will of course raise that matter. The first question that you raised, Deputy Adams, in respect of HIQA, the second recommendation made in the HIQA report was to ensure that the recommendations of this most recent report and previous HIQA reports are actually implemented. Now, I can't give you a date for publication of the bill that you refer to, but the Ministers accepted all of these recommendations, and that includes, for instance, the HIQA report on misdiagnosis of breast cancer situations previously, and the HIQA report in respect of inadequacy of maternity services in other locations around the country. And the fifth recommendation of the HIQA report was for the HSE to appoint a director of midwifery in every maternity unit around the country. So I'll come back to Deputy Adams with a progress report on the work in respect of the bill that the Minister referred to. But these 8 recommendations are accepted and are now being followed through to be implemented.
Deputy Richard Boyd Barrett.